same spirit as in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree, nor anything material. The soul has no byproduct either. The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls, and owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. In the Katha Upanishad, also we find something similar in a passage which reads, Najayate mrityaye va vipashim nayam kutashin na vibhuva kashit ajo nitya sasvato yam purano nahanyete hanyamane sarire. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as in the Bhagavad Gita, but in this verse, there is one special word, vipashit, which means learned or with knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart, where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul, simply by the presence of consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to clouds or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is therefore daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky, early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. This consciousness of the soul, however, is different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teachings of Bhagavad Gita would be useless. There are 2 kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul, Anu Atma, and the super soul, Vibhu Atma. This is also confirmed in the Katha Upanishad in this way. Anur Anyan Mahato Mahiyan Atmasya Jantur Nihito Guhayam Tam Akratu Pasyavati Vita Shoko Datu Prashadan Mahimanamam Atamanam. Both the super soul, Paramatma, and the atomic soul, Jivatma, are situated on the same tree of the body within the same heart of the living being. And only one who has become free from all material desires as well as lamentations can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be discussed in the following chapters. And Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by his bona fide representative or spiritual master. Veda vinashinam nityam ya enam ajam avyayam katam sa purusha partha kam gatyayati hantikam. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal, and immutable kill anybody or cause anyone to kill? Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests on the person with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of the peace awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of the peace cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person according to the codes of justice. In Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice. And as such, Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all, because at any rate, the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is with full knowledge, so there's no possibility of sinful reaction. Vasamsi jirnani yata vihaya navani grinati naro parani tata sarirani vihaya jirani anyani samyati navani dehi. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly, the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Change of body by the atomic individual soul is an accepted fact. Even some of the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of the soul, but at the same time cannot explain the source of energy from the heart, have to accept continuous changes of body which appear from childhood to boyhood, and from boyhood to youth, and again from youth to old age. From old age, the change is transferred to another body. This has already been explained in the previous verse. Transference of the atomic individual soul to another body is made possible by the grace of the supersoul. The supersoul fulfills the desire of the atomic soul as one friend fulfills the desire of another. The Vedas, like the Mundaka Upanishad, as well as the Svetavatara Upanishad, compare the soul and the supersoul to two friendly birds sitting on the same tree. One of the birds, the individual atomic soul, is eating the fruit of the tree, and the other bird, Krishna, is simply watching his friend. Of these two birds, although they are the same in quality, one is captivated by the fruits of the material tree. Did we read this already?
We did, but what fun. It's a wonderful metaphor.
Yes, Krishna is the witnessing bird and Arjuna is the eating bird. Although they are friends, one is still the master and the other is the servant. Forgetfulness of this relationship by the atomic soul is the cause of one's changing his position from one tree to another or from one body to another. The Jiva soul is struggling very hard on the tree of the material body, but as soon as he agrees to accept the other bird as the supreme spiritual master, as Arjuna agreed to do by voluntary surrender onto Krishna for instruction, the subordinate bird immediately becomes free from all limitations. Both the Katha Upanishad and Svetavatara Upanishad confirm this. Samane vrikshe purusho nimagno nishaya sosati muhayamana justam yada pashyatya anyam isham asya mahamanim itivita soka. Although the two birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with the anxiety and moroseness as the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. But if in some way or other he turns his face to his friend, who is the Lord and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free of all anxieties. Arjuna has now turned his face towards his eternal friend Krishna and is understanding the Bhagavad Gita from him. And thus, hearing from Krishna, he can understand the supreme glories of the Lord and be free from lamentation. Arjuna is advised herewith by the Lord not to lament for the bodily change of the old grandfather and his teacher. He should rather be happy to kill their bodies in the righteous fight so that they may be cleansed at once of all reactions from various bodily activities. One who lays down his life on the sacrificial altar or in the proper battlefield is at once cleansed of bodily reactions and promoted to a higher status of life. So there was no cause for Arjuna's lamentation. Okay, so what text were we up to?
We were up to 29.
I'm so sorry. I heard something else.
It's okay. It's fine. Sometimes listening to it the second time, you pick up something else.
Yeah, and then everyone else missed it, so we're catching up. It's fine. Okay. Ascharyavat pasyati kashiranam ascharyavat vatati tataiva chaya ascharyavat sainam anya shronoti shvarupi anam vedana savakashit. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Since Gita Upanishad is largely based on the principles of the Upanishads, it is not surprising to find this passage of the Katha Upanishad. Sravanyapi burbir yonalabhya srivantopi bahavo yana vidyu Ascharyo Vakta Kusalo Shalabda Ascharo Jnanata Kushalanushishta. The fact that the atomic soul is within the body of the gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic banyan tree, and also in the microbic germs, millions and millions of which occupy only an inch of space, is certainly very amazing. Men with a poor fund of knowledge and men who are not austere cannot understand the wonders of the individual atomic spark of spirit. even though it is explained by the greatest authority of knowledge, who imparted lessons even to Brahma, the first living being in the universe. Owing to a gross material conception of things, most men in this age cannot imagine how small a particle can become, both so great and so small. So men look at the soul proper as wonderful, either by constitution or by description. Illusioned by the material energy, people are so engrossed in subject matter for sense gratification that they have very little time to understand the question of self-understanding. Even though it is a fact that without the self-understanding, all activities result in ultimate defeat and a struggle for existence. Perhaps one has no idea that one must think of the soul and also must make a solution for the material miseries. Some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures in good association, but sometimes, owing to ignorance, they are misguided by acceptance of the supersoul and the atomic soul as one without distinction of magnitude. It is very difficult to find a man who perfectly understands the position of the soul, the supersoul, the atomic soul, their respective functions, relationships, and all other major and minor details. And it is still more difficult to find a man who has actually derived full benefit from knowledge of the soul and who is able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. But if somehow or another one is able to understand the subject matter of the soul, then one's life is successful. The easiest process for understanding the subject matter of self, however, is to accept the statements of the Bhagavad Gita spoken by the greatest authority, Lord Krishna, without being deviated by other theories. But it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice, either in this life or in the previous ones, before one is able to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna, however, can be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee and no other way. Dehi nityam avadyoyam dehe sarsvatya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvyam sotsitam arhasi. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body is eternal and can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any creature. The Lord now concludes the chapter of instruction in the immutable spiritual soul. In describing the immortal soul in various ways, Lord Krishna establishes that the soul is immortal and the body is temporary. Therefore, Arjuna, a Kshatriya, should not abandon his duty out of fear that his grandfather and teacher Bhishma and Drona will die in the battle. On the authority of Sri Krishna, one has to believe that there is a soul different from the material body. Not that there is no such thing as soul, or that living symptoms develop at a certain stage of material maturity resulting from the interaction of chemicals. Though the soul is immortal, violence is not encouraged, but at the time of war is not discouraged when there is an actual need for it. That need must be justified in terms of the sanction of the Lord and not capriciously. Svadharmam api saveksha na vikampitam arhasi dharmayad diyudak trayonayat kashatrayasya na vidyate. Considering your specific duty as a kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. Out of the 4 orders of social administration, the second order for the matter of good administration is called kshatriya. Kashat means hurt. One who gives protection from harm is called kshatriya. Trayate, to give protection. The kshatriyas are trained for killing in the forest. A kshatriya would go into the forest and challenge a tiger face to face and fight with the tiger with his sword. When the tiger was killed, it would be offered to the royal order of cremation. This system is being followed even up to the present day by the Kshatriya kings of the Jaipur state. The Kshatriyas are especially trained for challenging and killing because religious violence is sometimes a necessary factor. Therefore, Kshatriyas are never meant for accepting directly the order of sannyasa or renunciation. Nonviolence in politics may be a diplomacy, but is never a factor or principle. In the religious law books, it is stated, Ahavesyu mito nyonyam jignan masanto mahisachita yuda mana param sakya svargam yanti aparan mukha yagneshu pashavo brahmin hanyate satatim dvija samskritya kila mantres Chate pi svargam afapnuvan. In the battlefield, the king or the kshatriya will fight while fighting another king envious of him is eligible for achieving heavenly planets after death. As the brahmanas also attain the heavenly planets by sacrificing animals in the sacrificial fire. So that's the whole thing, the sacrificing animals thing. It's not what we, well, at least how it was explained to me, which is kind of far out. It's not how they really were doing it in Kali Yuga. Like, you're not supposed to kill the animal. Like, there was some kind of crazy, like in other times where people were more enlightened and the energy was different, and on other planets and all that. They say that they would do this ceremony where like a very old horse would transform into a young horse. So that's what they mean by sacrificing animals. Okay. Therefore, killing on the battle of the religious principle and the killing of animals in the sacrificial fire are not at all considered to be acts of violence, because everybody's benefited by the religious principles involved. The animal sacrifice gets a human life immediately without undergoing the gradual evolutionary process from one form to another. And the Kshatriya is killed in the battle. See, I don't know. This is how it was explained to me, because my teachers were like very upset about it. Anytime they'd read about animal sacrifice, they would talk about this horse situation. But yeah, I don't know. He's saying here like actual killing, maybe like for hunting or something. I don't know. The evolutionary process from one form to another, and the Kshatriyas killed in the battlefields also attain the heavenly planets, as do the Brahmanas, who attain them by offering sacrifice. There are two kinds of Swadharma, specific duties. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of that particular body in accordance with the religious principles in order to achieve liberation. When one is liberated, one's Svardharma, specific duty, becomes spiritual, and it is not in the material bodily concept. In the bodily concept of life, there are specific duties for the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, respectfully, and such duties are unavoidable. Swadharma is ordained by the Lord, and this will be clarified in the 4th chapter. On the bodily plane, Swadharma is called Varnashrama Dharma, or man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding. Varnashrama is sort of what they created the caste system out of, but the caste system is like a very perverted, polluted view of Varnashra. Human civilization begins from the stage of Varnashrama Dharma, or specific duties in terms of the specific modes of nature of the body obtained. Discharging one specific duty in any field of action in accordance with the Varnashrama Dharma serves to elevate one to a higher status of life. Yajracha kopapnam svarga varnam aparvratam sukhina Kshetriya Partha Labante Yudhyam Idrasyam. O Partha, happy are the Kshetriyas whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. As supreme teacher of the world, Lord Krishna condemns the attitude of Arjuna, who said, I do not find any good in this fighting. It will cause perpetual habitation in hell. Such statements by Arjuna were due to ignorance only. He wanted to become nonviolent in the discharge of his specific duties. For Kshatriya, to be in the battlefield and to become nonviolent is the philosophy of fools. In the Parasara Smriti, a religious codes made by Parashara, the great sage and father of Vasyadeva, it is stated, Kshatriyo hai praja rakshan shastra pina pradyananyam nrityar nrichitya parasanyadi kashitam dharmina palayat. The Kshatriya's duty is to protect the citizens from all kinds of difficulties, and for that reason he is to apply violence in suitable cases for law and order. Therefore, he has to conquer the soldiers of inimical kings, and thus with the religious principles he should rule over the world. Considering all aspects, Arjuna had no reason to refrain from fighting. If he should conquer his enemies, he would enjoy the kingdom, and if he should die in the battle, he would be elevated to the heavenly planets, whose doors were, bless you, wide open to him. Fighting would be for his benefit in either case. Ata chetvam imam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi tata svadharmam kirtyam cha hitva papam avapsyasi. If, however, you do not fight this religious war, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. Arjuna was a famous fighter, and he attained fame by fighting many great demigods, including even Lord Shiva. After fighting and defeating Lord Shiva in the dress of a hunter, Arjuna pleased the Lord and received as a reward a weapon called Pashupata Astra. Everyone knew that he was a great warrior. Even Dronacharya gave him benediction and awarded him the special weapon by which he could kill even his teacher. So he was credited with so many military certificates from many authorities, including his adopted father, Indra. That's the Indra, the heavenly king. But if he abandoned the battle, he would not only neglect his specific duty as a Kshatriya, but he would lose all of his fame and good name, and thus prepare his royal road to hell. In other words, he would go to hell not by fighting, but by withdrawing from the battle. Okay, I'll read this last one and then we'll chat. Akirtim kapi bhutani katya shanti tevayayam sambhavitasya charkitir maranad atrikyate. People will always speak of your infamy, and for one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. Both as a friend and philosopher to Arjuna, Lord Krishna now gives his final judgment regarding Arjuna's refusal to fight. The Lord says, Arjuna, if you leave the battlefield, people will call you a coward, even before your actual fight. And if you think that people may call you bad names, but that you will save your life by fleeing the battlefield, then my advice is that you'd do better to die in the battlefield. For a respectable man like you, ill fame is worse than death. So you should not flee for fear of your life, better to die in the battle. That will save you from the ill fame of misusing my friendship and from losing your prestige in society. So the final judgment of the Lord was for Arjuna to die in the battlefield and not withdraw. Okay, we're leaving off on text 35. Thoughts?
Isn't it interesting that the last reason Krishna gives Arjuna for not backing out of the battle is, you're going to lose face, sweetheart. You can't.
Shame.
Yeah, and I thought, wow, he had all these other powerful reasons, and he ends up with, junior high embarrassment deepens into shame.
Well, I read it kind of differently than that. I was reading it as he knows the constitution of his friend, and he knows how he will suffer that. So it was more of a like Arjuna not being able to handle it kind of thing.
Yeah.
I
know
know
you really well, and you will hate this if this happens.
Right.
Okay.
There was so much like virtue associated with the traditions of this culture, especially if you had certain he was like, he had princely responsibilities. He was in kingdom, he was supposed to be an honorable man. So he's saying for an honorable man with that kind of constitution, that kind of shame would do you in. Better to just kill yourself on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Sounds like tough times.
Yep.
I'm thinking about like how this applies in my own life, and how I have these two examples of, like, one being in high school, my gym teacher, you have to run the mile, and I was going to try out for the basketball team, and he was like, no, you're going to go run track. And I was like, I don't want to run track, and I want to play I want to try out for basketball. And it's almost like these people come into your life and you don't even realize, like, they become like the Krishnas of your worlds, and you're supposed to listen to yourself, but they kind of like steer you back onto your path. It's almost like they know you better than yourself. And so I wound up running track and never playing basketball. And it was like the greatest thing of my life. I broke a school record. I was captain, like, it steered me into the college. It kept me out of trouble. And who knows if I would have even made the basketball team. Probably not. And then, like, having a mentor in the business professional world and going to her when I feel stuck, and like, she'll be like, she just tells me these things out of my own benefit. Like, you find these people that speak for you, not what they want for you, but what they know you need.
We were talking about that yesterday in teacher training, that the role of the teacher of the Veda is like, when you sit down in that position of teacher, you're not supposed to be taking anything from your students. You're supposed to only be giving, right? The idea is like this mentality of purely selfless giving, all the knowledge that you have, all the information, without any regard for self-gratification, and like that, the nature of that. And it sounds like that was your teacher and your mentor's attitude. The nature of that sort of gives you good information, because you're getting You know, there's like no material gain for the person. It's like
Yeah.
it really kind of taps into spirit in that sort of mood.
Yeah, it's just, and those are the people that we should be building our like support and our circles around.
Yeah,
And
for
that goes back to like picture everyone you know in as God in drag or something,
sure.
because they really are.
Yeah, after reading the last chapter, that phrase is so much more pertinent now. You're just a tiny little molecule in drag.
But then I guess it can go the other way. You can find the bad Arjunas, and I've definitely run into those where it's like they're directing you out of their own material gain, I guess.
Mm. And then they're not really qualified to be teachers according to this tradition.
Yeah, of course.
They disqualify themselves. But in America, we don't really have any safeguards against that. there's no like overriding tradition, or like the whole, I don't know. Yeah, it's just different now. People can kind of do whatever they want. Maybe that will change as we all mature as a yoga society in America.
Yeah.
It seems to be with the most recent movement of Me Too.
Mm.
A lot of people got called out and they had to kind of like go into a cave. They weren't allowed to really, and that, I guess that kind of speaks to the last comment he made, right? If you're a person who gets all these accolades and honors, then it's pretty brutal to be to get that shame after for not following dharma. These teachers, like, everyone looked up to them and everybody revered them and put them on a pedestal, and they did the wrong thing, and it was like a big fall from grace for a lot of these people.
Well, Eric and I always talk about like, I don't know anything about Kobe Bryant, just to be fair. Like, I don't follow NBA. I don't know anything about him other than they say he was a good basketball player, but he was also charged with very bad things.
Yikes.
But when he died, and it just like the anniversary just came about, so this is why it's on my mind. But like, I guess he didn't get charged with the bad things, but he paid a fee. I don't really know the whole details, so I don't want to defame him anymore. But none of that was spoken of. Like, none of that dishonor was spoken of when he died. Like, that people only speak of the good things.
Mm.
And we were like, but yeah, he was good at this, but he was also a really bad person if that thing was true. And I see that in other examples too. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I feel like I don't hear the dishonor as much sometimes with people. Like, I mean, obviously, like the Hitlers of the world, yeah, you're not going to be like, well, he was an okay person.
I think it depends. And you remember Al Franken, who was a senator and who did far less than what Kobe was charged with, far less, although it was juvenile and entitled and stupid behavior for an adult. He's gone. He's gone in the political world, and he ain't ever coming back, I don't think, because he hasn't worked to rebuild. So I think it depends on how many defenders you have and how shiny your shield was before. I mean, Kobe could do no wrong in terms of basketball. He was considered one of the greats, of the decade, if not more. And it's hard to find the fatal flaw and to see the fatal flaw and acknowledge it. Look at Clinton. I don't know if you guys remember and how old you were when he was found, even though it had been talked about over and over and over again, when there was final, absolute demonstration of the man couldn't keep it in his pants.
Mm-hmm.
And and I just found it totally disgusting. And yet there were almost everybody around me said, well, yeah, but look at all that he's done, et cetera.
Right. But he's a good president.
Exactly. And I kept on thinking, it would be one thing if, for example, he could acknowledge his error and say, I am sorry. This is
Right.
what I did. And he never did. And he still hasn't. And so I'm wondering, what you said, Pam, is that, people don't talk about the bad when people die. I think that's true to an extent, but it's not always true. And I really think it depends, like I said, how shiny is your shield and how many people are willing to look at the shine and turn away from the black hole on the other side.
Yeah, man. Sports stars and musicians in our culture are so revered that it's very, very hard for them to fall from their pedestal. It's very,
Yep.
very hard.
Yep.
Which is, I feel like a lot of women are working, especially with like the Women's March and all this, like are working towards changing that. It's sort of a patriarchal, it's like a very perverse, patriarchal societal problem that we have. And I think women are, I mean, we finally have a vice president who's a woman. I think we're pushing forward and hopefully things slowly inch their way to change, Your generation did it for our generation, and hopefully our generation does it for the next generation.
I agree. I think it's changing, but I agree with you about the slow part. It's just, it takes so long. And it even, that song, Another One Bites the Dust? I can't think of the group that did it.
Yeah.
Boom, boom. I mean, that is blatant misogyny and sexism. And yet, if I go to a bar with my brothers and we're hanging out and having a beer and it comes on, we all laugh hysterically at it.
I had no idea that that's what that song was about.
Oh, Amanda, play it and listen. And you're
all right, I'm gonna have to listen now, right? Because I used to listen when I was a little kid. I thought they meant like Another One Falls, or and I always make that joke, Another One Bites the Dust too. I had no idea.
No, it's sort of like, well,
in the context you're saying, I understand. You don't have to.
Yes. Anyway, and it takes so long, and it takes a lot of very hard work, and it's not done on I mean, the fact that Kamala is now vice president is great, but I have to say these are almost like token representations. It happens every day in every interaction, and people calling out each other in a kind way. I mean, you don't want to get shot down in the street, but beyond that, you're not going to change anything if you attack people all the time, unless you have to attack. So maybe that's what Krishna is saying. If you got to attack them on this, go for it. But there are other ways to try to make the change first. I hear you, Krishna. All right.
You got it. You got the message of this chapter. Yeah, that really makes me think about the whole death penalty.
Yeah.
You're saying that you're actually, like, it never looks, it was like the story Raph told, right? It's like it never looks how you think it looks on the material level. And that's what my teacher often says to us. He says that sometimes what's spiritually right makes no material sense. And as you're sort of moving through the yamas and niyamas, which are the if you're not aware of them, for whoever's listening, it's the codes of conduct of the yogi. It's sort of like the 10 commandments of the yogi. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense when you're moving through it and you're like, this is so stupid, and like, oh, I'm suffering needlessly for this thing that I'm trying to do. And then maybe like a week or a month or a year later, you'll suddenly see the benefit of it, and it'll occur to you like, oh, I guess, like, you have to have trust in this like spiritual information they're giving. They knew something that if we look from our material eyes and listen from our material ears, we can't hear it and we can't see it, but like you feel it eventually if you have to keep doing the right thing. So yeah, as the book progresses, like Krishna keeps revealing more of himself in sort of the way that we experience the world, like the way that spirit sort of spills into the material world. So for 2020, I have this Vedic astrologer, and he was emailing everyone like for a while before everything went down. You know, I turned to my husband one day. I was like, this guy is sending me like 10,000 emails all of a sudden. He's never done this before. And it was like, dude, everything is bad is coming. Like, you have to, you know, bear down. The stock market's going to crash and like a terrible thing is going to happen to society. And I was like, man, this guy's losing. Right. And he did my chart and he's like, you got to wear this emerald ring. So that was 2019. So I wore the emerald ring, which like never wanted to stay on my finger. It still like pops off my finger all the time, breaking. Cause I think it's like, you know, protecting me, but 2020 didn't want that to happen. Right. So I have this ring. So then like it kept, the suggestions kept getting crazier. So eventually the last suggestion, because of like Rahu and Ketu, which are these planets you can't see, he's like, you have to go outside every morning and feed the birds this particular mix of grains and rice. And then you have to go and feed the bugs. So I was like, feed the birds and the bugs? Why do I have to feed birds and bugs? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It made no material sense that I have to go outside. And I told my parents, I'm like, you know, I don't think I'm going to do it. It seems too crazy. And they're like, you're probably going to do it because you are a little crazy. So I did it once and it was like a great day. And then like the second day I didn't do it. And like some terrible thing went down. This was like right in the midst of 2020. It was like one traumatic thing after the other. And it was like clockwork. Every time I didn't feed the birds and bugs, some terrible thing would happen. And I was like, God. So I got freaked out. And I started feeding the birds and bugs every day. And like after a month of doing this, and my daughter would be involved, and it's like, oh, mommy, you forgot to go feed the birds. So I looked it up. Why am I supposed to be feeding the birds this particular grain? And they said, well, each grain has the same energy of these different planets. And the birds see the past, the future, and the present all at once. They're like, they tear into the fabric of the material to like access the spiritual. So they're like, if you give them the grains, it like gives them insight into like sort of attenuating your karma for you. And like I read that, and the next day there was a dead bird on my doorstep.
Oh my God.
Because I was like, oh, that's weird. I don't know if I believe that. And then there was the dead bird. And I was like, oh, you know, like, you're like, oh God, I'm so creeped. And I looked up the dead bird and it was like, you have to trust, according to what it means spiritually, like you have to trust that there's a change coming and you have to participate in the change. I was like, all right, I hear you. I'm gonna do it.
It's also like you have no control over it.
Right.
The outcome, like you have to do your duty. You have
like
no
your
control.
duty. Yeah.
Right, do your duty, feed them birds and bugs.
Feed the birds and bugs. So that's what I've been doing every day. I feed the birds and bugs.
Today is hard to feed the bugs.
Oh, they find it. They find all
Oh, good, yeah.
the sugar and the sesame seeds.
Oh yeah. I mean, I didn't cut down a lot in my garden, so that I left places for them to hide.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read
lots of sesame seeds.
It's like I got into a whole rabbit hole with it. Like if you feed cows, so I'm thinking of these farmers who are just like feeding cows. It's like one of the holiest, highest things that you can do. Like it's so good for your soul to feed cows, apparently. And there was like each category, like the cat people are doing something beneficial, and like it's a boon to feed animals of different kinds for different reasons. It was kind of interesting to me, but it makes me think of like the people who I know who are animal lovers. Like they do seem pretty charmed. You know, they're such sweet, loving souls that they would like go out of their, like Lisa Braun goes outside and she feeds all the stray cats. She has like 1,000 cats, you know. She like feeds all the stray cats in her neighborhood, and she's like getting all this good karma for that. I thought it was amusing, but like the whole idea that there's this like spiritual realm that's completely affecting and guiding and dictating what's going on in the material realm that we can't see.
My husband, I was the one who put out the bird feeders initially, but it is my husband who puts food in them every day. Well, he did it last night because he knew it was going to storm this morning. And he does it, and he throws out, we buy these giant bags of raw almonds from Costco, God bless Costco, and he throws out a couple of handfuls every day for the squirrels.
Oh,
I mean, he's like the sentimental picture of St. Francis.
I was going to say, we all know your husband's real saintly. He's like the ultimate man.
It's well, I have to say, one day he's going to go out there and hold out his arms, and all of the blue jays and brown birds are going to politely.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it's 8:18.
Oof.
Sorry, I'm carrying on for so long about birds and bugs. I'm sorry. Okay. So let's come to do some breath work and meditation practice. You can take your right hand and open up your palm. Fold the peace fingers into the center of the palm. Close off the right nostril with the thumb. Inhale through the left nostril. Close off both sides and exhale through the right. Inhale through the right. Close off both sides. Exhale through the left. Inhale through the left. Close off both sides. Exhale through the right. Inhale through the right. Close off both sides. Exhale through the left. Inhale through the left. Close off both sides. Exhale through the right. Inhale through the right. Close off both sides. Exhale through the left. Inhale through the left. Close off both sides. Exhale through the right. Inhale through the right. Close off both sides. Exhale through the left. And exhale all the way out. And we'll take the hands, open up the palms for Bumhari breath, bumblebee. You're going to take your thumbs to close off your ears, your peace fingers to close off your eyes. And then we're going to inhale deeply through the nose and exhale through the nose with mouth is shut both times. And as you exhale, you're going to create a buzzing sound at the back of the throat. So we'll do 5 times. Inhaling. Mm. 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 We'll take Bella's breath, so you'll pump the belly in and out, and we'll just do 20. So inhale all the way, exhale all the way, inhale halfway. Inhale all the way. Retain your breath. Exhale all the way out. Okay. So you can set your timer for 20. I'll set the timer too. If you have to go, that's fine. Otherwise, I will be here. Bringing hands to prayer. Bowing the head. Namaste, everybody. Have a great day. Enjoy the snow.
Namaste. Bye.
Bye.